He's one of the biggest names in the business, with fame, fortune, and critical acclaim. He's collaborated with legendary directors and won countless awards. But before he became a household name, Brad Pitt had to appear in a movie that he's not particularly proud of, Cutting Class. Let's face it, Cutting Class is a pretty forgettable horror movie. It wasn't very good, and it didn't do well at the box office. So how did a superstar like Brad Pitt end up in a film like that? Get ready for a surprise. His early career wasn't always as glamorous as we think. William Bradley Pitt's story didn't start in Hollywood. He was born in 1963 and grew up in Springfield, Missouri. As a middle-class kid, his life was pretty normal, but he found his calling at a drive-in movie theater. Movies showed him a world that was bigger, more exciting, and more fun than Springfield. Later, he went to the University of Missouri to study advertising and graphic design, but he really wanted to be an actor. With just 2 weeks left before graduating, he packed his bags and moved to Los Angeles to chase his dream. He lived in a crowded house with 7 other people and took any job he could find. He drove limousines and even dressed up as a giant chicken for the fast food chain El Pollo Loco. He didn't care how silly he looked or how hot it was in the costume. The money helped him eat and pay for acting lessons. While studying acting, Brad started getting his foot in the door of the entertainment industry. He had a fresh, attractive look that always caught the eye of casting directors, but he was still just one of many unknowns trying to make it big. Even though it wasn't easy, Brad got his first movie roles as an extra. In some scenes of the teen drama Less Than Zero, starring Robert Downey Jr., you can see him briefly. He only made $38, but he had so much fun that he didn't care. Brad wanted to join the Actors Guild, but he needed to have a line in a movie to do that, so he came up with an idea. In one of his jobs as an extra, he was supposed to play a waiter and serve champagne at a dinner party. After serving a glass to an actress, he asked her, "Can I get you anything else?" The director stopped the filming and yelled at him, saying he would fire him if he did that again. Slowly but surely, Brad got roles with lines in TV shows like Dallas and 21 Jump Street. These were small parts, but they were still jobs, and they helped him learn the ropes of the entertainment industry, which is a really colorful and tough business. He even auditioned for a leading role in Heathers, a controversial teen movie we discussed in another video, but didn't get the part. Then, in 1988, Brad's hard work finally paid off. He landed the lead role in The Dark Side of the Sun, a movie made in both the United States and Yugoslavia. He played Rick, a young man with a skin disease who wants to find a cure. Brad worked really hard to prepare for his first starring role. He was excited to see the movie, hoping it would help him get more jobs. But the movie couldn't be finished right away because of the Croatian War. It wasn't released until 1997. By then, Brad was already a famous actor. Even though he was successful later on, things were still tough for him in the late 1980s. Brad wanted to keep busy, so he tried his hand at horror movies. Back then, most horror movies were slashers, which are about mysterious killers who kill young people. These movies were usually made on a small budget, took place in one place, and had actors who weren't very famous. Brad saw that slasher movies could be a good way for young actors to get started in Hollywood. Some of them even became big stars. He remembered Jamie Lee Curtis, who was only 19 when she was in John Carpenter's Halloween. After doing more horror movies, she started getting roles in different kinds of films with bigger budgets. Kevin Bacon and Tom Hanks also got their start in horror movies. Bacon was in Friday the 13th, and Hanks was in He Knows You're Alone. Brad thought he could have a similar career to other actors who started in horror movies, so he went to auditions for horror roles. He tried out for the main part in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Johnny Depp had been in the first movie, which was a good sign. But Brad didn't get the part. He did, however, get a role in the episode Black Tickets on the TV show Freddy's Nightmares. Brad kept looking for more roles in horror movies. He finally found a script written by Steve Slavkin, a new writer who was also trying to make it big. When Brad read the script, he saw that it was a typical slasher movie. But like Halloween and Jamie Lee Curtis, it could be a good opportunity for him. The script was called Cutting Class. Paula Carson, a high school student, is the main character of the story. She lives with her dad and is dating Dwight, a popular athlete. But Brian, a young man who recently got out of jail for killing his father, is also interested in her. As these teenagers are dealing with their relationships, a series of violent murders starts happening. The police think the killer could be either Brian, Mr. Dante, the school principal, a weird janitor, or even Dwight. Brad decided to do the project mainly because he needed a job, but also because he heard it might be a different kind of slasher movie. The production hired British writer Rospo Pallenberg as director. He was known for working on scripts with famous director John Boorman, helping him write Deliverance, Excalibur, and The Emerald Forest. These were all highly acclaimed movies that encouraged Pallenberg to try his hand at directing. It was surprising that his first film as a director would be a slasher, which is quite different from the kinds of movies he usually worked on. Intrigued by Pallenberg's involvement, Brad joined a cast that included both rising young stars and seasoned veterans. Jill Schoelen was selected to play Paula. Fresh off her performance in the 1987 thriller The Stepfather, she was poised to become a scream queen, but many in the industry saw her potential beyond horror, predicting a successful career. Her personal life also garnered attention, as she had dated the rising star Keanu Reeves. Schoelen initially passed on Cutting Class, finding the script unappealing. She turned down the role multiple times. Her agents, however, convinced her to reconsider, emphasizing the career-boosting potential. The film offered her a starring role, and Pallenberg's reputation as a respected industry veteran added to its allure, as his directorial debut was generating excitement. As negotiations with Schoelen continued, Cutting Class added 2 seasoned actors to its cast. Martin Mull, a renowned musician and comedian with a track record of memorable performances, signed on to play William Carson, Paula's father. The production tapped Roddy McDowall to portray Mr. Dante, a former child star who shot to fame in the 1960s, particularly for his role as Cornelius in the Planet of the Apes series. McDowall maintained a steady career throughout his life. However, his popularity surged in the 1980s thanks to his roles in horror films. Mull and McDowall's intervention fired up Brad and convinced Schoelen, albeit reluctantly, to join the Cutting Class project. The only piece missing was the actor to portray Brian. The role went to Donovan Leitch, a rising star with experience in both domestic and international films. He also came from a creative family. His father was celebrated Scottish musician Donovan, and his sister, Ione Skye, had been in hit movies like Say Anything. Brad knew he was the greenest of the bunch, but he was determined to learn from the others and do his best to make Dwight a believable character. However, filming Cutting Class wasn't a walk in the park. Brad and Schoelen saw that Pallenberg was a decent guy, although they quickly realized he had trouble adjusting to the director's role. He wasn't thrilled about making a horror movie, so he tried to inject more humor, but that wasn't the biggest pain point for the cast. Before each take, Pallenberg would give them line readings he wanted them to copy exactly. This approach is usually a turnoff for actors, and this was no exception. Even though the director was tough to work with, Brad was focused on doing his job. But like any movie set, there were downtime periods between scenes. Sometimes the waits were long, and the young actor was going crazy with boredom. Once, he saw a car driving by and, just for kicks, he flipped off the driver. It was a dumb joke, but a few minutes later, cops showed up on set looking for him. He found out that the driver, who was pissed off, had called the police. Brad answered a few questions, apologized, and that was that. Beyond the work and the jokes, Brad also made an effort to connect with his castmates, particularly Schoelen. They shared a mutual disdain for the script and Pallenberg's performance, but their bond deepened through more personal connections. After filming, they began dating, starting as friends and eventually developing into a romantic relationship. This was Brad's first serious relationship with an actress, and their undeniable chemistry was evident on screen, enhancing the realism of their performances. During a much more pleasant climate for the lead couple, the filming of Cutting Class concluded without major setbacks. Production took place throughout 1987, but the film was not released in theaters until July 17, 1989. Brad and Schoelen were hopeful about the release. Although they hadn't had a great experience making it, they at least hoped it would perform well at the box office and lead to more and better opportunities. But nothing went as planned. By then, the slasher genre was stale, with repetitive plots and uninspired movies. Plus, critics had always been harsh on these films. On the other hand, horror comedies were starting to get popular, which might have helped Cutting Class. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough. The movie was slammed by critics and ignored by audiences. People complained about its lack of originality, slow pace, poor direction, and inconsistent acting. Cutting Class didn't do well, but Brad Pitt wasn't discouraged. In fact, he saw the bright side. He had just starred in a movie, which helped his acting career. And most importantly, he had met Schoelen. They were always sweet and happy together in public. Back then, she was more famous than him, but they were both attractive and got a lot of attention. Their relationship got stronger, and they eventually got engaged. Brad was head over heels for her, and he wrote her poems and letters to show how much he loved her. but their happy time didn't last long. In 1989, Schoelen called Pitt from Hungary, where she was filming a remake of The Phantom of the Opera. She sounded down, and he knew she was feeling lonely. Worried, he spent $600 of his $800 savings on a plane ticket to Budapest. When he got there and met up with her, she told him she had fallen for Dwight Little, the movie's director. Shocked, Pitt could only say that he was leaving. He would later look back on that as one of the most painful and embarrassing moments of his life. Back in the United States, the actor dedicated himself to his career. Soon after, he got his big break. His performance as a charming thief in Thelma and Louise captivated Hollywood and the world. He landed bigger and better roles in major films, and he didn't stop until he became a superstar. In his personal life, he had several relationships and married both Jennifer Aniston and Angelina Jolie. The other people who worked on Cutting Class also had successful careers. Slavkin became known for his work on the Nickelodeon channel. Mull continued to do well in television and theater. McDowall worked until he died in October 1998. Donovan Leitch focused more on his music career, playing in different bands. As for Jill Schoelen, she appeared in other horror movies, married composer Anthony Marinelli, and raised a family. In an interview, she talked fondly about her time with Brad. Even though he became a famous actor, Pitt never forgot about Cutting Class, but not in a good way. In a 1994 Rolling Stone interview, he mentioned it briefly and called it terrible. Around that time, a weird rumor started. People said that he and Aniston went to a garage sale and bought a VHS copy of the movie for $20. Then, he supposedly destroyed it while yelling, "I wish I could destroy all the copies." In a later Rolling Stone interview, Pitt said that wasn't true. Still, he called Cutting Class a teen horror movie whose only scary part is that it exists. He also said that he hated making it so much that he never watched the whole thing. When the journalist asked him if he would really destroy every copy if he could, he said yes. Cutting Class could have made Brad Pitt a star, but it almost ruined his early career. Even though they had problems filming it and the movie didn't do well, it shows how hard he worked to improve as an actor. And it reminds us that even our favorite movie stars have some bad movies they wish they could forget. New ideas often face resistance in Hollywood, but when they break through, they can reshape popular culture. Beetlejuice is a prime example.